China is building a dam so massive it could slow the rotation of the Earth. But that is not what makes it dangerous. In July of last year, China quietly began construction on the largest infrastructure project in human history. No ribbon-cutting ceremony made international headlines. No Western news network led with the story. But what is being built in a remote canyon in southeastern Tibet sits directly above the water supply for over 1 billion people. It is called the Medog Hydropower Station. When it is finished, it will be the most powerful dam ever constructed. It will be 3 times more powerful than China's Three Gorges Dam, which is currently the largest on Earth. 60 gigawatts of generating capacity, 300 billion kilowatt hours per year, enough to power a mid-sized country. The total investment is estimated at $137 billion. Other estimates put it closer to $167 billion. Either way, it is the most expensive single construction project ever attempted by any nation. The dam sits on the Yarlung Tsangpo River, which originates high on the Tibetan Plateau from glacial meltwater near the roof of the world. The river flows east across southern Tibet for over 1,000 miles before reaching a point that engineers call the Great Bend. This is where the river makes a sharp turn around a Himalayan peak and plunges through the deepest canyon on Earth. Deeper than the Grand Canyon, 3 times deeper. Over a stretch of just 50 kilometers, the river drops 2,000 meters. That is a vertical mile of falling water and 30 miles of distance. It is one of the steepest descents of any major river on the planet, and China plans to capture every bit of that energy. But here is what India and Bangladesh are watching very carefully. Once the river passes through that canyon and crosses the border, it becomes the Brahmaputra. And the Brahmaputra is not just a river, it is the lifeline of northeastern India and Bangladesh. Hundreds of millions of people depend on it for drinking water, for irrigation, for fishing, and for flood management. And it feeds into the largest river delta on Earth. And now China is building a dam system directly above it. The project is not a single dam. It is a network of 5 hydropower stations connected by tunnels drilled through the Himalayas. Some of those tunnels stretch more than 12 miles. China says this is about clean energy. Beijing says it is part of its plan to reach carbon neutrality by 2060. And officially, the design is what engineers call run-of-the-river, meaning water passes through turbines and is returned downstream. No large reservoir, no stored water, no weapon. But not everyone believes that. Indian politicians have called the project a water bomb. The term was first used by an Indian member of parliament from Arunachal Pradesh, the state directly downstream of the dam. His fear is simple. If China can regulate how much water flows through the system, it can control the Brahmaputra, not by diverting the entire river, just by holding back enough during the dry season or releasing too much during monsoons to cause flooding downstream. And there is a precedent for this fear. In 2017, during a military standoff between India and China at a disputed border area called Doklam, China stopped sharing hydrological data about the river. That data tells downstream countries how much water is coming and when. China simply turned it off. No warning, no explanation. India went blind on one of its most important rivers during a period of active military tension. That single act revealed something that no official statement could. It showed that China views the river as leverage. And this brings us to the deeper story. Tibet is often called the water tower of Asia. The plateau is the source of 10 major river systems: the Yangtze, the Yellow River, the Mekong, the Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra all begin on or near the Tibetan plateau. Together, these rivers sustain nearly 2 billion people across more than a dozen countries. And China controls the headwaters of almost all of them. Since the 1990s, China has been building dams on these rivers at an extraordinary pace. More than 190 hydropower projects have been initiated or proposed on Tibetan rivers since the year 2000. The Mekong, which flows through Southeast Asia, has already been dramatically affected. Countries like Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam have watched their fish stocks collapse, and their water levels fluctuate wildly as Chinese dams upstream regulate the flow. Now, the same pattern is coming to the Brahmaputra. But the engineering risks may be even greater than the geopolitical ones. And this is where the sheer scale of what China is attempting becomes terrifying. Remember, the Three Gorges Dam is currently the largest dam on Earth. NASA confirmed that when its reservoir is full, the weight of 40 billion tons of water concentrated in one place is enough to slow the rotation of the planet. Each day on Earth gets longer by a fraction of a microsecond. The dam China is building now will be 3 times more powerful. It will sit in a canyon that drops 2,000 meters, and it will be built on one of the most seismically active fault lines on the planet. The Great Bend sits directly on the collision zone, where the Indian tectonic plate is pushing into the Eurasian plate. This is the same force that created the Himalayas, and it is still active. In 1950, an earthquake measuring 8.6 on the Richter scale struck near this exact location. It was one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded on land. It reshaped river courses, triggered massive landslides, and caused catastrophic flooding downstream in Assam. And just days after China approved the dam project in December 2024, another earthquake struck the region. Chinese authorities reported it as 6.8 magnitude. The United States Geological Survey measured it at 7.1. 126 people died. Engineers from China's own Geological Bureau have warned about the risk of earthquake-triggered landslides and mud flows at the site. In 2021, a glacier collapse sent 100 million tons of rock and ice into the river just above the Great Bend, blocking the flow and raising water levels by more than 10 meters. In 2018, a similar landslide temporarily dammed the river and flooded the valley. Both times, emergency evacuations prevented mass casualties, but neither event involved a $137 billion structure sitting in the path of the debris. The question scientists are asking is not whether another major earthquake will hit this region. It is when. And when it does, what happens to a dam system with tunnels drilled through 12 miles of unstable Himalayan rock sitting above a canyon that drops 2,000 meters, directly upstream of hundreds of millions of people? India is not standing still. In response, it has announced its own massive hydropower initiative in the northeast. More than 200 dams are planned for Arunachal Pradesh, with a combined capacity of 75 gigawatts. The centerpiece is the Upper Siang project, an 11,000 megawatt dam on a tributary of the Brahmaputra, designed specifically as a strategic counter to what China is building upstream. But the project is stalled by local opposition. Indigenous communities, particularly the Adi people whose ancestral lands would be flooded, have refused to accept displacement. So the situation is this: China is building above, India is trying to build below, and in between, a river that sustains hundreds of millions of lives is becoming the center of a contest between two nuclear powers over something more valuable than oil, more essential than semiconductors, and impossible to replace: water. China has not released an environmental impact assessment for the Medog Dam. When lawyers tried to obtain it, the Ministry of Ecology and Environment said the document was classified. Researchers who raised concerns were met with online harassment accusing them of helping India. And inside China, there has been almost no public debate. Searches return identical government press releases and investor reports. The largest infrastructure project in human history is being built with less public scrutiny than a local highway expansion. Construction is underway. Commercial operations are planned for 2033. And downstream, More than 1 billion people are watching a river that has sustained their civilizations for thousands of years slowly come under the control of a single government that has shown it is willing to use water as a tool of power. The dam is not a bomb. It does not explode. But when you control the water supply for 1 billion people, you do not need one. And this is just one piece of a much larger story we are tracking.